Being that this video is similar enough to the last video, I don't think an intro is necessary, so we're going to go ahead and dive right in. Curse. Combat statuses that provide a harmful effect in the target. The duration and power of it is based on its own amount of charges. Bleed. Lose 1 HP per charge at the start of the turn, then remove 1 charge. Bleed can't be blocked, so it's a great tool, but dangerous when used against you. Bleed can stack, and if it isn't dispelled, can put out some massive damage if you focus a single target with it. The one downside of it is that there are several enemies immune to it, so you will have to make sure that you are using some other forms of damage, just in case. Burn. Fire resistance minus 0.5% per charge. Suffer 1 fire damage per charge at the start of the turn, then remove 1 charge. This damage can be blocked and is not affected by other modifiers. Burn is another damaging status ailment that can add up pretty quickly. However, it can be blocked. There are a lot of spells that mages can cast that base their damage on burn stacks, and burn stacks also reduce fire resistance, so a character built well around fire can dump out some serious damage, with or without the burn damage specifically. Chill. Cold resistance minus 1% per charge. Speed minus 1 per 5 charges. Remove 1 charge at the start of the turn. Chill can be used to increase cold damage, but is most importantly used to reduce the enemy's speed. This can add up very fast. If you don't keep up with removing chill from your heroes, you will end up going last every turn against cold-based enemies. Using it yourself will allow you to keep a speed advantage, which can be necessary against some enemies. Crack. Blunt damage taken plus 1 per charge. Remove 1 charge at the start of the turn. In my opinion, this is one of the least useful curses in the game. It can be built around, but the sources of blunt damage are mostly restricted to tanks, and those attacks are very limited. There are some items that can increase this, and if you get the right item build, it can be useful, but it requires at least 1 rare item in order to do so, and building your perk tree around it. The problem with this is that you can't be sure you'll get the item, and if you build your perks around it and don't get the item, it's a very weak build. Dark. Shadow resistance minus 1% per charge. Upon reaching 25 charges, explodes. Remove all charges, then suffer 2 shadow damage per charge. This damage can be blocked and is not affected by other modifiers. Remove 1 charge at the start of the turn. Dark can be incredibly powerful when stacked quickly. The damage done is based on the number of charges, which is a base of 25 for a total of 50 damage, without the influence of items. And it can be stacked repeatedly if you have that much dark output. I have an entire build around it, and it can be incredibly powerful. I do usually need to run at least 2 characters with dark builds, as both mages and priests can, when I do. Otherwise, the output is not quite as potent. Decay. Heal received minus 50%. Remove 1 charge at the end of the turn. Charges do not stack. There aren't really enough cards for players to make any builds around this. Be careful because an enemy using this can drastically reduce the effectiveness of your healers. I recommend dispelling it as soon as possible. Disarm. Unable to play attack cards. Remove 1 charge at the end of turn. Charges do not stack. Disarm is another rare curse that is mostly used by the enemies. It can be harmful if you run a heavy damage scout or tank, but doesn't affect mages or healers. Doom. Dies when charges reach 0. Remove 1 charge at the end of the turn. Can't be dispelled or prevented. This is only used by the end boss of the game, at least until you get to the mid to high madness levels. The idea is to end the battle as quickly as possible since this cannot be purged. Fatigue. Gain 1 less energy per charge at the start of the turn, then remove all charges. Cannot be dispelled unless specified. Fatigue is only effective against the player. Some cards that the player uses can give fatigue, but it is to the user, not the target. Be very careful as this can really hurt any character's effectiveness. My advice is to end enemies that give fatigue ASAP, and don't stack too many cards that give it to your characters. Insane. Mind resistance minus 1% per charge. Damage done minus 0.5% per charge. Remove 1 charge at the end of turn. Insanity is actually much more useful than it appears at first glance. Healers and scouts can stack this pretty quickly, and it functions similarly to other elemental damage, that is, that it increases the damage of mental attacks, and those cards usually stack more insanity. The other thing it does is reduce the damage the enemy does. I believe this has diminishing returns, as I have stacked it well over 200, and the enemy was still doing damage to me. However, I did get it up to about an 80% reduction, which is still incredible. Mark. Damage taken plus 1 per charge. Prevents 1 stealth per charge. Remove 1 charge when this happens. Remove stealth from the target. Remove 1 charge at the end of turn. Mark can stack damage pretty quickly if you can get enough cards that add it. This can only be reliably applied by scouts, which makes it difficult to stack quickly, but it does increase all damage taken, so it's always worth it if you can stack it. Much like Sharp, this benefits heavily from multi-hits as the damage is added on a per hit basis. Paralyze. Skip the next turn, then remove 1 charge. Charges do not stack. Another curse mostly used by the enemy. It can be devastating if it hits your main damage dealer or healer, especially when you get unlucky and it hits the same character on back-to-back turns. If you notice an enemy using abilities that paralyze, make sure to pop some buffer stacks on the aforementioned heroes. Poison. Lose 1 HP per charge at the end of the turn, then remove 1 charge. Like Bleed, Poison stacks deal damage through block and can be very effective when stacked quickly. Also like Bleed, there are some enemies that are immune to it, so make sure you have other damage types just in case. Sanctify. Holy resistance minus 1% per charge. The attacker heals 1 HP per charge when the target is hit. Remove 1 charge when this happens. Sanctify can be incredible in the right build. If you get enough stacks on the enemies, your allies can effectively heal themselves by attacking the enemies that have those stacks. Every time you attack one of those enemies, it does reduce the number of Sanctify stacks it has, so that slowly goes down in effectiveness if you aren't constantly applying more stacks. Shackle. Speed reduced to 0. Removes evasion from the target. Remove 1 charge at the start of turn. Charges do not stack. This is kind of a rare curse as a whole. Not too many player cards, nor a whole lot of enemies use it. However, just like Chill, if you aren't careful, it can screw up your turns and keep you going last repeatedly. Sight. Reveal 1 card per charge. Remove 1 charge at the end of the turn. Sight allows you to see what the enemy is going to play. It allows you to know who to focus and what to protect yourself from. I only use it on specific characters that benefit from it more than its base effect, but this is just my preference. Silence. Unable to play spell cards. Remove 1 charge at the end of the turn. Charges do not stack. Silence prevents you from casting spells. As such, it only affects healers and mages, and does not matter to scouts or tanks. Like Disarm, this is a pretty rare curse, but can be devastating if you aren't prepared and need to heal. Slow. Speed minus 2. Prevents 1 fast per charge. Remove 1 charge when this happens. Remove 1 charge at the start of the turn. Charges do not stack. Another curse that helps control the turn order. Slowing the enemy allows you to get the advantage through attacking first. Spark. Lightning resistance minus 1% per charge. Deal 1 lightning damage per charge to the target's sides at the start of the turn. Then remove 1 charge. This damage can be blocked and is not affected by other modifiers. Spark is an interesting curse as it doesn't directly damage the unit that is affected by it, instead it deals its damage to the enemies next to it. As with the other elemental effects, it reduces the enemy's resistance as well, but this is only to the cursed enemy. Stress. Draw 1 less card per charge at the start of the turn, then remove all charges. Cannot be dispelled unless specified. Very rare curse that reduces your draw, mainly cast by some bosses, something to watch out for, and can only really be countered by giving Inspire to the affected ally. Vulnerable. All resistances minus 5% per charge. Maximum charges, 10. Remove 2 charges at the start of the turn. Vulnerable is a great debuff, but can be very difficult to stack quickly, as it's pretty rare. The increase in damage caps out at 50%, but affects all damage types. Weak. Damage and heal done, minus 50%. Remove 1 charge at the end of turn. Charges do not stack. Weak is a devastating curse as it reduces all damage and healing done by half. This is a pretty rare curse, but should be dispelled as quickly as possible on anybody but the tank. Wet. Lightning damage taken, plus 1 per charge. Prevents 1 burn per charge. Remove 1 charge when this happens. Removes burn from the target. Remove 1 charge at the end of turn. Wet is a moderately useful curse, but is kind of niche. I don't think it's a necessary curse unless you are going to an area that has a lot of burn effects. This concludes our adventure down the lane of auras and curses. Next on the docket is character perks, so be sure to tune in for that. The next several videos, we will be talking about the various ways of customizing your characters and getting the most out of your team. Thank you so much for your support, and let me know in the comments if you learned anything today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.